Hello everybody and welcome back to the Inner Sanctum YouTube channel. I'm your host, Ari Stamatakos, and today we're back with another episode of Player Spotlight. Now, for those who didn't watch episode 1, basically this series is going to be where we look at players on the periphery of the Socceroos squad, on the fringes, and where they sit in Graham Arnold's plans and what are their hopes for the World Cup in November. Now, episode 1 was of course on Yannis Stesnes, and today we're going to be looking at former Melbourne City player Nathaniel Atkinson. So let's get right into the video. Now, who is Nathaniel Atkinson? Well, he's a 23-year-old right back slash right wing back slash right midfielder slash pretty much anywhere on that right-hand side. Like I said, he's a former Melbourne City Youth Academy product, meaning, of course, he was played for Melbourne City for a couple of seasons before moving to Hearts of Midlothian in Scotland in January, playing 14 times for them this season. He's represented Australia at under 20 level, under 23s level, and of course in the senior squad, being capped 3 times. And he obviously has played for the Socceroos more recently in the games against Peru and the UAE, which we'll touch on a little bit later. But when you look at Nathaniel Atkinson, I think you have to really dissect what he actually is as a fullback, because like I said, he can really play anywhere on that right-hand side. So let's just take a deeper look as to where Nathaniel Atkinson potentially, where his strengths lie, where his weaknesses lie, and who exactly he is as a player. Now, the best way, in my opinion, to analyse Nathaniel Atkinson's game is by looking at how versatile he is. Now, let's do that by bringing up his heat map from his time at Hearts so far. Now, this shows, obviously, it's very traditional, as we can see. It is on the right-hand side, up and down, and this shows that he's pretty much the full range of fullback. He played in a, more often than not, he played as a right wing-back in a back five, but he also played as a traditional right-back for Hearts as well. Now, this just shows that he's able to get up and down, be the full package in terms of fullback. Offensively very sound as well as defensively adept. And some interesting stats that have come from his time at Hearts is that he actually has the highest carries per 90 for Hearts in his time there already, with 16 carries per 90 last season, as well as having the 8th highest chances created per 90 for Hearts with 0.70. Now this shows that he's able to carry the ball exceptionally well, be an offensive threat, and be that width that allows Hearts to really dominate possession at times and be that kind of unpredictable team that they are. Some other interesting stats as well that show that he isn't just an offensive fullback that lacks defensive strengths. He has 4.8 ground duels won per 90, which is a fantastic stat, especially for a fullback when you're coming up against these tricky wingers who are able to take the game on, really be unpredictable in the way that they play. Being very strong in a tackle and being able to shut those wingers out is a fantastic strength for a fullback to have. Now, like I said, let's analyse both his time at Hearts and in his time at Melbourne City. So his last full season at Melbourne City was, of course, the 2020-2021 season. Now, if we bring up his heat map from that year, as we can see, it is very similar in the sense is that it's up and down, full range, like the full package of right back that he is. He can get up the ground and well be defensively sound. However, this shows that he's very tactically fluid because there is a heavy emphasis on playing in that half space, especially towards in the middle third of the pitch, which shows that he can play as an inverted fullback, which is something that maybe managers like Pep Guardiola have come to have put into the football mainstream, playing these inverted fullbacks almost as a central midfielder. Now, Patrick Isnorba and Melbourne City did play that system in that 2020-2021 season, and Atkinson was one of the best players that season. Just shows his tactical fluidity. Now, I think the game that typifies his season for Melbourne City, his last full season, was the grand final, of course, against Sydney FC. Now, he won the Joe Master Medal, which, for those who don't know, is the best player of the grand final. Now, because of some injuries and some absences from the squad, he actually played as a right winger in this game. Now, obviously, that despite being on the right-hand side is something that could be a little bit foreign to him, but he scored an all-important goal, being the equalising goal in that game, as well as having 5 successful dribbles from 8 attempts, 4 tackles, 6 key passes, and 8 ground duels won. He was by far and away the best player on that pitch in the grand final, and just shows that he's able to live up to the hype and he's able to be a very influential player in very big games. His season averages for that year were exceptional as well. He averaged 1.6 key passes, 2.4 tackles, 2.4 successful dribbles, 1.4 interceptions per game, as well as a 72 pass completion rate in the opposition half. This is just absolutely unbelievable stats, and just shows how well-rounded he is as a fullback. And what we saw in the Socceroos, in the last 2 games for the Socceroos in the game against Peru and the UAE, should I say, is that he did start both those games, and while he was potentially not exceptional in those two games, he did offer quite a bit going forward, as well as quite a bit defensively. So let's just cover his Socceroos career to date, and let's just take a further look at it. So when you look at Atkinson's Socceroos career to date, he has, like I said at the top of the show, he has played 3 times, making his debut against Saudi Arabia in March. And in that game, I guess we really saw the full package from Atkinson. He had 3 successful dribbles, 1 key pass, and 5 ground duels won. So very strong in a tackle, carrying the ball forward, being that offensive threat, as well as being defensively solid. Now, in a match where the Socceroos struggled in a big way, so the Saudi Arabia really dominated the game and didn't allow the Socceroos to get a foothold into it, he was able to be that spark, have some impact, and shows that when his team isn't potentially playing well, he can be that leader to get the team to play well and be that kind of soldier to carry the boys forward in a sense. He started, like I said, and played both games against UAE and Peru. Played both relatively similar games, which were not overly exceptional, but not overly poor. However, there was one key area of the game that was noted, or key area of those 2 games that were noted, was that his direct opponents, obviously he was playing as a right back, the opposition left winger were able to get a hold of him at times. Now, in his 3 matches for the Socceroos to date, his direct opponents have had 12 successful dribbles across those 3 games. Now, they all had in the game that in each of their games, his direct opponent had the most amount of successful dribbles for their side. Now, this is potentially an area of concern, especially from the level up from potentially the A-League and even Scotland to the international level is quite a leap. So one area of his game which potentially needs improving is that he does allow some space in behind. I think we saw that very prominently against Peru and the UAE. He does allow space in behind, and he can be, I wouldn't say maybe a liability, but he does offer that area for the opposition to exploit him in a sense, being that area in behind. He does like to be very aggressive in his positioning, very aggressive in the way that he plays. So catching him out with balls in behind could be an area where Atkinson needs to improve. But where does his future lie? I think that's the big question, because we've seen he's already played 3 games for the Socceroos and he's played well in his own rights in all 3 of those games. But where does his future lie for the Socceroos? I think that's the big question. So let's dissect that right now. I think when you look at Nathaniel Atkinson's future, I feel like you have to try and compare him to the elite of fullbacks, because I feel like that's where he's capable of being as well as aspiring to be. Now, this could be a little bit strange in a comparison, but I actually think his most applicable comparison is actually to someone like a Trent Alexander-Arnold. Now, for those who know Trent Alexander-Arnold, one of the world's elite fullbacks, however, he is defensively quite susceptible to being caught out of position. Now, in terms of Atkinson's creative output, it is quite good in the same way that Alexander-Arnold's is quite good as well. He's a great carrier of the ball, he's strong in a tackle, and I think his best asset potentially is his 1v1 defending. Like we saw with those ground duels, his tackling is exceptional. However, he does get caught out with his positioning at times, like I noted in his games for the Socceroos, as well as his passing output isn't as high as it potentially could be for a fullback. Now, the reason I make that Alexander-Arnold comparison is that both have quite clear attributes and quite clear strengths that can propel them to being the best in a big bunch of players for their position. However, they do have quite clear and noticeable deficiencies in their play. And if Atkinson can get those deficiencies right and can really work on them over the off-season, I feel like he could come back and really make an impact for Hearts as well as the Socceroos in November. Now, when we're looking ahead at the World Cup, I feel like he definitely has a place at the World Cup. I do think that he is the first choice right back, especially if he can get those deficiencies sorted. And he has a profile of fullback that the Socceroos don't really have. I think you look at Frank Karacic, who is the probably deputy, if you're to call him that. He's more defensively minded. He could be used to see games out or to shut out a left winger who could potentially have an impact on the game. But he doesn't really offer a lot in terms of an offensive threat. And I do think Graham Arnold would like to have, especially if the Socceroos are going to be playing with a more counter-attacking based system, in the World Cup, I feel like Graham Arnold would want some offensively minded and some offensively capable players to play at fullback. He, in my opinion, is the perfect player for the system, capable in possession and extremely good in a tackle. Like I said, it's that defensive positioning and potentially his passing output that could see his downfall in a sense, but I feel like if he could get those two areas of his game fixed and to a decent level, I feel like he could be a standout player for Hearts as well as the Socceroos. Now, another area which allows him to be the first choice Socceroos right back is that he's tactically fluid. I haven't really mentioned this a lot, but he's very capable of as playing as a right wing back and as a right back. And like I said, he played as a right winger in the A-League Grand Final 2 seasons ago and played fantastically in that game. So it will be interesting to see which area of the pitch Graham Arnold deploys him in. It will be interesting to see whether he starts or he does go with Karacic. But should Atkinson start, I feel like from now until November, he can take his game and elevate it to leaps and bounds to what it is right now and really be an asset that the Socceroos can use and thrive off in the World Cup. But so that is it. That is the player spotlight for Nathaniel Atkinson. Thank you all very much for watching. Thank you all very much for the support in episode 1. Make sure you leave a like, subscribe to the Inner Sanctum YouTube channel, leave your thoughts in the comment section below, and leave your thoughts about what player we should do next. So yes, thank you guys very much for watching. Leave a like, subscribe, and goodbye.